Welcome everyone to tonight's program about solar energy, presented to you tonight by the West Hempstead Public Library. Our presenters tonight will be Chris and Sam, and they will be sharing some information with you. We ask that you keep your questions for the end of the program, and for the duration, please keep yourself on mute. If you have any questions or concerns that really need to be addressed, feel free to share your question. Here you go. Chris, Sam, take it away.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for a little information session on, we're going to call it Solar 101. My name is Chris Tranquina. I'm with Sam Dorber. We're in the solar energy, renewable energy business. We kind of refer to ourselves as energy consultants. And we're going to provide you today with some information on the science behind it, what is solar, the benefits, and how it actually could benefit you and your home. At this time, I'm going to share my screen, and Sam will start us off and take us through a little bit. All right, Sam, I think you're ready to go, right?
All right. Yes, I am. Hello, everyone. I am Sam. Like Chris mentioned, we're in the solar industry. I studied electrical engineering and then found out about renewable energy and then just really fell in love with it. So here we are. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about solar energy. So what makes solar energy something that, came up as a topic? It's Energy Awareness Month. And one of the biggest things is climate change. As some of you have noticed, we're having more wildfires in California and also in the New York area. We've been seeing more tropical storms, more than we've been dealing with before. So that's really something that's making an impact on our lives and our environment, which makes us, pay more attention in how we can change these things. So one of the things that comes up is how is this happening? So let's talk about a little link between pollution and climate change. As we have more greenhouse gases in our planet, it makes the planet warmer, and these makes our conditions more extreme. So areas where there might have been 1 or 2 hurricanes, now there's increased hurricanes. Where there might have been smaller wildfires, that everything is increasing. So areas it's not only in expanding in different areas, but it's also becoming more intense. So now that we actually know that this is a fact, this is something that we have to deal with. Technology, just the human race is trying to figure out how can we combat this. So as you can see, as the Industrial Revolution that happened, we were doing a bunch of really cool stuff and then didn't realize the impact that it had on the actual environment. So as you can see, over half of the US climate pollution comes from electricity and transportation, which is one of the main reasons that we've decided that, it's important that we just try to switch to clean energy. You can see that over here on the chart, the total US greenhouse gas emissions in 2018, 28% was from transportation, 27% from electricity, 22% from industries, residential and commercial was 12%, and agriculture was 10%. So what is a clean energy future and how do we get there? So first thing, do more with less. What does that mean? Prioritize energy efficiency. So what is that? Sometimes we all have these motion detection lights. You might have them switching in your houses. So when you leave a room, the light turns off. We have LED lighting, which provides, almost the same amount of light, brightness, but using less electricity with it. Harnessing the sun and wind. So you see a lot of wind turbines and also solar panels, solar energy, to help build clean and affordable electricity, and then also stop using fossil fuels. So we try to reduce our use on fossil fuels, which also helps with that. So as technology develops and advances, we're finding more ways that we can take advantage of other resources that we have, and also make it smart. So use software and data to build better systems. As we collect more data and software gets better, we can see places where we can make improvement to actually help us make everything not only energy efficient, but also be able to utilize clean energy. So what is solar energy and why is it important? Solar energy is any energy that is converted from the sun. It's the cleanest and most abundant renewable energy source available. Using solar energy, we can harness the sun's energy for electricity, heating, water, and other industrial and commercial uses. Things like not only heating water, but sometimes you see like the picture below, we can heat salt or saline. So those are some of the commercial industrial uses. United States has some of the richest solar resources in the world, meaning that we have a bunch of land where if we were actually to place, let's say, a bunch of solar panels, we could actually cover all the electricity needs that we have in the United States. And this is important because it helps combat greenhouse gas emissions and reduces our collective dependence on fossil fuels. These systems derive clean, pure energy from the sun and can be utilized on a daily basis. That's one of the great things about renewable energy. It's sustainable systems, meaning every day the sun comes up, the wind blows, and we can take advantage of that. All right, so how do we make electricity from the sun? We do it through photovoltaics. I don't know, some of you might have heard the word before, photovoltaics, or sometimes we like to keep it short for PV. Solar cells, also known as photovoltaic cells, generate electricity when exposed to particles of light. This is done by using certain elements from the periodic table. If you guys remember in science class, we all learned about the periodic table. Well, there's certain elements on the periodic table that actually, when sunlight hits it, it reacts and they lose electrons. So when we get those electrons, we're able to gather them, and when you get a bunch of electrons flowing in one direction, it's called electricity. So silicon is one of the most abundant elements on the Earth's crust, next to oxygen, is actually a really good element for this. So that's what most solar panels are made from. So when the sun shines on the solar panels, the energy from sunlight is absorbed in the cells on the panels, and then this energy creates electrical charges in the solar cells, causing electricity to flow. And then, so why do we call it a solar system? Everyone talks about having a solar system. So, once we have the panels, the panels make the electricity, you have to collect electricity. So the electricity generated from these solar cells is collected by the wires that are in the solar panels. This electrical current is DC current. So most of our appliances in the house actually runs on alternative current because it's a lower voltage, so it's much safer to use, meaning if something happened and you happen to stick your hand in a socket or something like that, it's not as bad as dealing with direct current. So it's a safer use. So we collect that DC energy from the solar panels, but have to convert it to AC. So we do that by using an inverter. So inverter converts that DC energy to AC from the solar panels. And then when we say a solar system, it's because it's all the parts that we need to make solar power usable from photovoltaics. So it consists of the solar panels, the inverter, as well as your mounting and cabling accessories to complete the system. This is an example that I have over here, where you can see the solar panels on the roof, and then you can see the little inverter that goes to the meter. And then so what happens is, once it goes, the solar power is created, it goes to your house. Any power that's not being used in your house, it goes to the meter, and you can feed it back to your grid. And then you also see at the bottom an example of a system with the inverter on the side of the house. And Chris will share a little bit more about that.
So I'm going to jump back in. That's a little bit of the science behind the process, how it works. So what are the benefits to you? How does it actually work in your home? How is it going to be set up? So living on Long Island, we all know our utility rates continue to go up every year. On average, it's about a 3.5% to 4% increase historically per year. with our rates right now with PSEG. The goal is to try to get some cleaner and greener energy, but at the same time, at the end of the day, what we're really most interested in, let's face it, is saving some money in our pockets. So the government has put out some mandates that are leading toward this. In New York State, they're looking to have 70% of the state on green energy by 2030. And the goal is to get 100% by 2040. That doesn't mean they want solar panels on every roof. What they're saying is they need to find ways to start producing more and more green energy. Whether it's going to be fields of solar, fields of windmills, some kind of water turbines, solar panels on the roof. They need to find a way to start producing more green energy to, as Sam was speaking about, clean everything up and make it more beneficial to everybody. One of the ways we're looking to do this is through solar energy. The sun is, as he said, the sun is not going away. We may get a cloudy day or something, but if that sun ever goes away, we're all in trouble. So, you know, we shouldn't have to get to that point. So the benefits, it's cleaner and greener. We're going to reduce those carbon emissions. We're going to clean the footprint up. We're going to try to, you know, save some of our environment. The growing utility rates. I don't know if anyone's ever looked at a utility bill. Usually that bill comes, we pay it, we realize how high it is, we complain about it, we go on from there. If you ever look at that bill, on the back, it's broken down into sections. One of the sections is your usage. One of the sections is taxes and fees. One of the sections is going to say delivery charge. When you look at that, half of your bill each month on average, some months it may be 47%, some it may be 53%, is the delivery and system charges, which means we're paying half that bill every month to bring the energy to your home. In New York, we're dealing with some of the oldest infrastructure in the country, and we're 100 miles or more from the closest grid. So when you see those trucks out there repairing poles, when we have an outage and they're out there working on the lines, when they're digging and we're paying for that and that delivery and system charges. So half your bill each month has nothing to do with what you're actually using in your house. It's just for the right to get that to you. When you look at those taxes and fees, they're not going to go away. We all pay taxes. There's always a fee of some sort somewhere. There's a little tiny key that breaks them all down and shows them to us. Some months you may be paying 7 or 8. Some months you may be paying more. For those that actually have people that they know that live in Suffolk County, believe it or not, there's a tax that's still on there where they're paying for Shoreham. It's been there forever. It's not going away because they owe so much money. There's a tax they pay each month on their bill to offset Shoreham. So going back to how we're going to entice people to put solar panels on their house, the government has decided they're going to kick in money. So right now, the federal government will give you 26% of the cost of your system back in a tax incentive the following year. New York State will give you 25% of the cost of the system, but they're going to cap that at $5,000. So what that means is if your solar system at the end of the day is going to cost, let's say, $40,000, you will be eligible for a $5,000 tax incentive from New York State and 26% of $40,000, so, you know, a little over $10,000 back from the federal government. We can tell you what you are eligible for. Your tax professional can tell you, can you claim that? Basically, if you're paying that much in taxes, you should be able to get that much money back. It's not going to be a write-off. It's actually going to come back to you in the form of money. And that would come in your taxes that you file next spring if you were to install solar this year. If you can't claim it all in 1 year, you have 5 years to claim it. So if you can only claim 6,000 in year 1, you could claim, you know, the other 4,500 or whatever it works out to in year 2. So that money is yours. If you notice the little chart to the right, the solar tax credit was at 30% a couple of years ago. It dropped to 26%, and it was supposed to drop to 22% this year. With the new incentive package that went out that was put in by Joe Biden, it stayed at 26%. It'll be at 26% again in 2022. Then it will drop to 22%. In 2024, it's going to go to 10% and then fade away. Can that be upped? Sure. Will it? Possibly. But that federal tax, the ITC as they call it, that incentive package is going to continue to go down. The New York State incentive has been at that same 25% level for close to 20 years. Every year they have to vote on it, but it's more of a rubber stamp and it just stays. Again, could it go away? Absolutely. Do I think it will? No. Could it go up at some point? You never know. But that's one of the reasons, and that they're in trying to entice us to put solar on our house, is by offering us a tax incentive. Because no one's going to go out and spend $50,000, $60,000, $40,000, whatever it costs, just to put panels on your roof. You want to see how, how they're going to help us pay for that. There's also some home improvement credits that are out there. Again, you would have to discuss it with your tax professional. But if you ever are looking to do any work on your home, such as putting on an extension, if you need a new roof, anything on the exterior that could be associated with expanding your footprint in order to put solar, you possibly could be able to get a tax incentive on that as well. It's a home improvement tax credit. Again, we could kind of lead you in the right way, but you would speak to a tax professional who's able to help out with that. So if anyone is in that stage where their roof on their house may be a 30-year-old roof guarantee, and you're in year 25 or 26, it's time to get a new roof. Maybe it's time to look into solar, because you're going to have to get a new roof anyway. Do it in the process, and maybe you can get a little extra back on a home improvement credit. So that's something with the benefits. What should you know about solar? So as I was telling you before, you need to dive into your utility bill. On average, how much are you paying a month? Is your bill $100 a month? Is it $200 a month? Is it $800 in some cases? Kind of figure out where you are. If you're at a home and you're only paying about $100 a month, solar is probably not a great option for you, because you don't have enough room to see the savings. Is your home an option? When you look at a house, there's certain environmental factors that we can't change. What direction do you face? What kind of pitch does your roof have? How much shade do you get? All things that are going to determine whether or not solar is a great fit for you. If you live on a tree-lined street that may be a beautiful place to drive through, it's probably not the best house for solar, because those trees are going to provide shade on your roof. They're not going to allow those cells to operate and produce as efficiently as they should be. Could you take down the trees? That's your option. We say we're trying to work with the environment and save the environment a little, but on the other hand, taking down some trees may not be the worst thing sometimes in order to get the solar. Does your home look like the home pictured here on this slide with a little terracotta roof? And look at all the different angles up there. Not a great option for solar. We can't install on that clay tile and all those different angles. It's not going to allow for enough productivity. What are some common objections? Quite honestly, the number one objection that people hear in the solar industry is, I don't like the way it looks. My wife doesn't like the way it looks. We don't want to mess up our curb appeal. All very true statements 25 years ago. In the 80s and the 90s, you were dealing with very large solar panels on a 45-degree angle, very obtrusive, outdated, heavy, ugly looking. Now your panels are very low profile to the roof. They're about 5 or 6 inches off your roof just due to fire code. The technology that's out there now on the racking system that we'll talk about in a few minutes is state of the art, so it's very low profile. The panels in most cases are fully black. And I always say to people, when you drive through a neighborhood, tell me how many houses you see that have solar on. One, you're either going to see more and more have them, or two, you're not even going to notice it. So many people have it. So yeah, that's a great, objection that people don't like. Other people don't believe in it. And I'll be honest, before I started working in this industry, I didn't believe in it, and my wife didn't believe in it. It sounds like a scam. don't ever let anybody tell you solar energy is free. It's not. Nothing's free. We all know that. But in this case, you're looking to save money while getting cleaner and greener. All right. So it is not free. That is one misconception that is always out there. Don't ever let anybody tell you that. Other objections. I may not live here long enough. I can tell you how you can get around that too. Sometimes it's a great option to put solar on a home that you're thinking of selling. I can't offset my entire bill. You can't. But maybe in the long run, you're offsetting enough that's going to show you large savings that's going to make it worthwhile. Different people in different phases of life can look at this different ways. Personally, I have 3 young kids, and I look at it one way. People ask me, do I have solar on my roof? And the honest answer is no. And there's 2 reasons why. One is because my neighbor has a giant oak tree that they refuse to take down that shades 3/4 of my roof. I've talked to them about possibly looking into it. Maybe that becomes an option. Option number 2, reason number 2 is my wife and I want to expand our footprint. And we're not sure, are we going to do a rear extension or if we're going to put a full dormer on the house and then my roof line changes. Could I put panels on and take them off? Obviously, yes, absolutely. But right now, if we're going to be doing that work within a year or so, it's really not an option. So I've put them on my parents' house, my brother's house, my brother-in-law's house. All have seen great results and are loving how their system operates. But do I have them? No. So let's talk a little about how you would look into solar and how it could benefit you. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to collect a recent utility bill. On that bill, you have a little bar graph that shows us how much energy you have used in your home over the last 12 months. So you would sit with a solar energy consultant or call someone up and show them that bill. And they're going to be able to tell how much energy your home needs to operate over a 12-month period. Right now, the last 12-month usage for most of us has never been higher. We've all been home more than we've been out, and many of us have been spending the workday in the house as well. Not the case for everybody, but for many of us, we're spending more and more time in the house. So basically, that should give us a picture on the high end rather than the low end of our usage. The next step in the process is for your solar energy team to develop a system, come up with a plan to produce that much energy. As Sam was speaking about before, what happens is we'll get a solar panel, which could come anywhere from a 320 watt panel to upwards of 420, 450 watts, maybe right now. The larger the panel, it is a little larger in size. It's also a little more pricey and sometimes not as productive. My background is in math. So for me, it's a math problem. I have to produce X. How am I going to get there? And I'm going to do a math equation to see, okay, 25 of these panels will give me this number. Therefore, that's what they need. In some cases, you may need 10 panels on your roof. In some, you may need 60. It all depends on your usage and some of those environmental factors that we talked about before. The first thing an energy team is going to look for is a southern facing roof. Why? It's the most productive. The panels that are on that roof are going to operate at the highest productivity. After that, you'll look for an east-west plane and finally a north-facing roof. Usually, you do your best to stay away from a north-facing plane because the productivity will just not be cost-effective. Sometimes you can get away with it. Sometimes it's a necessity, but in the most part, you want to stay away from a northern-facing roof if you can. For some people, that's great because the front of their house faces north, and where do they want them? They want them on the back of the house anyway. For others, it works the opposite. The back of their house may face north, and they have to put them on the front. Now we go back to our objection of, hey, I don't like the way they look. You will get your racking system installed on the roof of your home. Most of these systems now are anti-rust and are going to be guaranteed for the life of the panels. They get installed with minimal penetrations to your roof. It's got a gasket, a rubber silicone gasket on the inside and outside of the mounting system, minimal penetration right into a rafter. That's the basis for how your system is going to be going on your roof. On top of that, each panel will get installed. Panels are not, they're not made out of a very breakable glass. If you ever see a solar team out there installing panels, you'll see the guys actually stepping on them, walking on them a little bit. They've got some play to them. They've been tested in hurricane winds where you're going to notice some of these places in Texas and down south that get these awful storms. The roof will come off the house before the panel comes off the roof. You will see the roof gets taken away with the panel still on. So people are always worried about winds. They are tested and then tested again. They're not going to come off your roof. They've had bowling balls dropped on them, all kind of things. Can there be a case where they crack for you? Sure. But in general terms, they're not going to break that way. Birds dropping shells on them, hailstorms, not going to be an issue. Panel goes on the roof, and as Sam spoke about, now we've got to get the sun to come into the panel, and we've got to convert that energy. So what's going to happen is you'll get what's called an inverter. That DC current is going to come through the panel into the inverter. The inverter is going to be connected to your house, and it's going to convert it into the AC, and you're going to keep in the home what you need to use at that time. Right now, I've got a couple of lights on, computers charging up, TVs, not running any air conditioning. If it was daytime, we're going to have, we're going to talk about being daytime. I'm going to keep in my home that stuff to run my computers, my TVs, my lights. Anything else that I'm producing over what I need is going to be sent back to the grid. Currently, we all have a meter on the side of our house, and it pulls our energy from the grid. You can watch whether you have the digital meter or the analog style. You can watch either the wheels spinning or the numbers turning, and it will show us pulling from the grid, pulling from the grid. When you would convert to solar, you're going to get what's called a net meter, which allows us to pull from the grid, but also push to the grid. So on a sunny day like today, you would keep in your house what you need, and you would push back to the grid anything that you don't need at that time. Our panels hopefully will be producing at 100% rate or more, which means we're going to have some overage that we can store in the grid. The logic and the science behind it is now at 6:15, 6:30, when the sun goes down, we are going to pull back from the grid everything that we stored during the day, and we're going to keep ourselves running at night. It's the same logic as to how you will power your home in November, December, January, and February, when you're dealing with a lot less daylight than June, July, August, and September. We're going to overproduce in the spring, summer, early fall months. We're going to bank it, and we're going to draw off that to keep us going through the winter. We're not going to have a day where our lights are dim or our TV doesn't want to come on because we're running low on reserves. You're never going to have to call the utility company and say, hey, I need a little juice today. Can you hook me up? That's not how it works. If you ever use more than you've produced, you're going to pull from the grid and you're going to get billed for it. So your meter is going to get swapped out. Your system on your home is kind of going to stay the same way. It's going to go where the other one was. And on the outside of your home, you get another little inverter box next to where your current meter is, as Sam showed in his picture before. We're going to connect to your main electric panel, just a normal connection, nothing crazy. That's basically the components of your system and how it's going to operate. Now, if the power ever goes out, we're going to stop operating. The why behind that is, I always visualize it with Chevy Chase on Christmas Vacation when he's out there connecting his Christmas lights. If we were still trying to run electric through those lines while they're fixing it, and the guy goes to put it back together, we're going to light them up. So while the power is out, we're not going to be operating. Our system's not going to be operating. But as soon as it comes back, we're going to be back. How can we combat this? There's a couple options. The easiest and most cost-effective solution to you is probably look into either a gas-powered or a full home generator. It's the most cost-effective, cost-efficient model that's out there right now. There's also battery technology. How a battery works is when the power would go out, instead of looking to draw from the grid, there's a kill switch, and now you're going to draw from the batteries that you have at your home. You're going to charge those batteries with the sun during the day, operate off them, and the process will work just like your panels do. They are expensive. A battery can produce about 4 to 10 kilowatts, depending on the size of the battery. So you're going to have to stack 2, 3, 4, possibly 5 batteries to power up a home. And they have a lifespan, just like any other battery, of somewhere in the neighborhood of probably about 10 years. So it's not the cheapest way to do it. It's very good technology. I'm sure the costs will start to come down, but right now it's kind of pricey. A lot of people now are starting to making the move to electric vehicles. With the electric vehicle comes the need to charge it. Unless you're going to, a Target or Kohl's or wherever they're putting these charging stations and paying there, people are looking to charge them at home. One way you could do it is you can install your own charging station in your driveway. Or 2, you could upgrade your electric and possibly go to solar, and at the same time, charge your vehicle off the sun so you're not paying for it there. So I want to get back real quick to the savings part of it. Remember, we talked about those tax incentives. That money is yours. Maybe you're going to get $16,000, $17,000 between the state and the federal government. You could take that money and you could take a nice vacation. You could look to, I used to say redo a bathroom, but these days with construction costs, you're probably going to be able to buy a toilet and a sink. You could do what you want with it. The goal and the reason for that money is to take it and put it toward the principle of your system. Currently, you've got your monthly utility bill. You're going to take that bill and you're going to throw it out the window. We're going to have to pay a small fee to the utility company, whether it's PSEG, whether it's Con Ed in the city, every month. It's roughly 30 cents a day, somewhere, give or take. It's about $13 a month. By law, we can't be off the grid. And as we spoke about, we're still going to utilize their lines. I call it a gym membership fee because we're never getting away from it, just like you're never getting away from the monthly gym membership fee. So you're going to pay them for the life of your system around $13 or so every month. You're not going to pay them an electric bill. You're going to pay a finance bill if you look to finance your panels. Some people will pay cash for their system. That's great. Then they don't have a bill. All they're going to have is their $13 a month. The goal is to get that finance payment for your panels somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40% lower than what you would be paying the utility company every month. Interest rates, as we know with mortgages, are very low right now. It's the same on solar loans. Right now, they're under 2%. 0.99, 1.49, 1.99, depending on the lender and depending on the terms of the loan, we're seeing rates all over the place. The rates coupled with the tax incentives are allowing users to see a 30 to 40% savings every month. That rate is going to be locked in for the life of your loan. If you take a 20-year loan, you're going to be locked in at whatever your monthly payment is. And remember, that utility bill, if without solar, is going to go up on average by about 3.5% a year every year over those 20 years. So maybe in year 1, you're saving $900. By year 20, you could be saving $3,000 a year. And that, over 20 years, maybe now you're saving $62,000. As I said before, I've got 3 young kids. when I do go solar, I'm going to continue to make my utility payment every month that I have budgeted for. But I'm not going to make it to the utility company. I'm going to make it in a separate account that now 20 years from now, I'm going to have it there to pay off college, to pay for a wedding. So I'm going to know what I'm budgeted for, but I'm saving at the same time in my own pocket. Other people look at it, they want to see short-term savings. For the person that's looking to possibly sell their home in the next 10 years, what do I do? Well, there's two options. Option one is you can just transfer the payments right over to the new homeowner. And option number two, which is what most people do, is you pay off what's left on the loan and incorporate it into the sale price of the house. Homeowners coming to Long Island looking for a new home, they may have a $400 utility bill a month across the street from you. You're going to turn over a $13 a month bill. Kind of makes your house look a little better. Another option I talk to people about is for the person that's maybe looking to sell their home in a year from now. Well, your system costs $40,000. You're eligible for $16,000 in tax incentives. Keep that money and put it in your pocket. Maybe now your finance charge goes up $25 or $30 a month from where your current utility bill is. So for the next 12 months, you're paying $25 or $30 extra. But remember, you just put $16,000 in your pocket. Now, in a year, it's time to sell your home. You've got, $37,000 left on your loan. You're going to add an additional $42,000 onto the sale price of your home. That's going to cover paying off that solar loan, and that's going to put an additional $5,000 into your pocket, which now brings you over $20,000 you made on putting solar on your house for that 1 year, and you upped your payments a little. Studies have shown sale prices go up about 6% with houses that have solar. Give or take the neighborhoods and all that kind of stuff, but it's about a 6% increase in sales price for homes that do have solar because, one, people like to be green, and two, everybody's looking to save, especially a new homeowner. So, like there's a lot of benefits to it. There's a lot out there that people don't understand about it. As I said, it's not free. It's taking money we spend every month and reallocating it and putting some back in our pocket at the same time. Who is a prime target for solar? Probably in most cases, someone that plans on being in the home for a long time. Maybe not. Maybe not. I've worked with developers who are putting it on homes they're building. People are using solar to power their pools, where they're seeing their summer bills ridiculous between central air and pool heaters and pool filters, and they're putting it on just to offset that cost because they know how crazy it is. So everybody, again, my background is in math. I look at every situation as a problem, and everybody's got a different solution. What may be the solution for you may not be the solution for them. There are multiple options of solar panels. Manufacturers. It's almost like buying a TV or a refrigerator. Do they all operate the same? Basically. Do your homework if you ever look into it. Find out which ones are going to have the best guarantees, which are going to produce the best. That's the thing that sets panels apart from each other. What kind of warranties are they giving you, and the production rate? Panels are going to be, in most places, warranted for 25 years. You're going to get, parts and materials for somewhere around 25 years. Some install companies are going to warranty their work for 5 years. Others will warranty for 25 years on their roof penetrations, on their anything that goes wrong. Does a company offer monitoring where you can see on an app exactly how much energy you're producing every day and how much you're using? It will show you and you'll be able to follow that. Some monitor it on the back end, some you just monitor it yourself. How productive is a panel? In 20 years, some panels are going to guarantee that they're going to be operating at about a 93% of where they are on day one. Others won't guarantee that. A lot of it has to do where they're made. What kind of technology are they using? So all homework that you should do yourself before jumping into it. Try to get an idea of what brands may be the best out there on the manufacturers. And again, installers. There's tons of installers on Long Island alone. Do some homework, see who does their own installs. See who's using third parties. See if you're dealing with someone local or you're dealing with someone in California. All different things that you should look into. But as a product, it's something that we believe strongly in. It's an industry that we love. And as we said, if that sun ever goes away, we're all in trouble. We're all in trouble. I think, Sam, I'm pretty much done at that point. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, you pretty much, yeah. I think you covered everything. That was awesome. Everything. And yeah, like Chris said, if that sun goes away, we're all in trouble. So, you know, the wonderful thing about it is that we can pretty much rely on the sun being here on every day. And not only that, yeah, when we take a look at your bill, we're seeing how much you use in a year. So you will overproduce during the days where you have those longer sun hours, spring, summer, and fall. And then we will compensate for that overproduction for those lower months during the winter.
At this point, I welcome any questions. If you want to open your microphones up, questions or comments, anything you guys had for us, we'd welcome it at this point. Oh, okay, I got a question coming in the chat. So how much is each panel? That's a question that always comes up, and there's no ballpark number that we can say a panel costs $1,000, so therefore 10 pounds is going to cost you $10,000. There's going to be factors that come into play, going back to that environmental stuff we were talking about. What size panel do we have to use? A 325 watt, a 360 watt, a 400 watt panel. How productive are they going to be based on the angle of your roof? The sun angle included. Do we have to use extra racking with extra pieces? I'm going to ballpark a standard home on Long Island with 4 people living in it without any kind of swimming pool or crazy upgrades. They're probably looking before incentives somewhere around $40,000 or $45,000 for a system, ballpark. But that's, you know, there is no straight metric that will show you that. Again, you may be able to use more of a larger panel compared to, less of a larger panel compared to more of a smaller panel. We kind of have to play with the math to see what works best. The process, how it goes is you would talk to whatever company you're talking to, share that utility bill. They're going to give you a proposal, which nobody can guarantee. Don't ever let anybody tell you they're going to be able to guarantee you what they're showing you when they first meet. It's going to be a picture that they are getting from an overhead image. Until someone actually gets out to your property, gets on your roof, no one is going to be able to give you an idea truly of what they're looking at. So you're going to get that initial proposal. A team then would look to come out to your house where an engineer like Sam would go and they would take sun readings, find out what kind of angle the sun is going to be at what time of year, how productive it's going to be. They would check the status of your roof as to age of your shingles, see how far apart the rafters are, make sure it can hold the load that they're going to put up there, check your electric panel, make sure that's up to code, and then get an idea of a final proposal that you would be handed. And as I spoke of before, then you would see the pricing and you could decide, do I want to finance this? Do I want to pay cash? There's also an option out there for leasing panels. I personally do not recommend that to anybody because it really doesn't have great benefits to the consumer. It more benefits the company that's installing it. Something else just came in the chat.
It was actually exactly what you were talking about. Is it better to own than to lease? And then one more thing on what Chris was saying is that the goal is always to try and save you money. It's always to save you money. And that's one of the reasons that whenever a solar company gives you a proposal, it's at no cost, it's for free. It's all we're going to do is take a look at your bill and figure out whether or not you could actually save money, and then you can make your decision from that point.
So one of the things when you start dealing with a lease is it's like leasing a car. You're not going to get away from that payment. What happens is you take that federal incentive, and you're not going to get that incentive. They're going to take that money and they're going to average that out over 12 months a year for whatever the life of your lease is, whether it's 15 years, 18 years, 20 years. So you're not going to get that initial tax incentive. It's going to be averaged in, and your bill's going to go that way. Sometimes there are some benefits with, you may not want to be in the home long enough, and you may look into a lease. There could be an easier way to transfer a lease over, but personally, I would not recommend anybody get into a lease. I've had more issues with people dealing with leases than not. Any other questions?
So if you do have a house that's north facing, and is not really a prime candidate for solar panels, is there anything else that can be done if you really did want to go green?
There is. We do a lot of work in Brooklyn and Queens, where sometimes you're dealing with flat roofs that don't have a lot of space, and also have air conditioning units and skylights and all that. In that case, what you can do is you can do what they call a canopy, where you actually build the solar off the roof, and you can create like a patio effect where that's a cover. There's ground mounts, depending on the size of the property and how much it is, a little more costly, but you could install a ground mount where your panels are mounted on the ground rather than the roof. Going back to the space, you're not always going to be able to get a full offset from the utility company. Maybe you could get 68% of your power from the sun, but you're still going to have to buy 32% from the utility company every month. Doesn't sound like a great deal, but when you work the numbers out, you may still be saving $100, $125, $200 a month because of the low rate that the solar is paid at. So even though you can't get to that, you may say, oh, my house doesn't have a lot of space because I faced the wrong way and I can only get this many panels. Sometimes it still is a way to be able to go green and save.
Yep, yeah, like exactly what Chris is talking about. So you just have to, we'll crunch the numbers for you and be able to show that to you. So, with a south facing roof, you could pay your system off in maybe like five years. And then maybe that north facing roof will pay your system off in 7 years. But either way, the system eventually will be paid off. So that's something that it's a case by case basis, or it could be facing south, but it's only has like 2 degrees to it. It's not as steep of a pitch. Every roof is different, every customer's usage is different. So we always take it on a case by case basis.
In general, you should see an ROI, or return on your investment, in somewhere between 7 and 10 years when you purchase solar. That should be the goal, somewhere in there. Most loans come with no prepayment penalties. So you could always, pay a 20-year loan off in 10. If you have a split level, would you get the panels only on the highest roof? Would you avoid a roof that has an attic fan installed then? Sam, I'll defer to you on that one.
Yeah. So what we try to do is we go for your best facing roof. So like Chris said, like we'll go for the south facing roof. So if you have a lower level and then have the higher level, but they're both facing south, if they're both facing south, neither one of those roofs are going to be shaded. So we would still max out those roofs. But now let's say if you on the back side, it was a north facing, or maybe on a section where it's the east and west, that higher roof might shade the lower roof, then we would try to avoid that area. But we have something called a sun eye. And basically, I would go on the roof and I would take pictures on your roof that basically shows the path of the sun. So it shows the path of the sun from when it rises to when it sets, and from January to December. So I'll be able to see if there's any obstructions, whether it be your roof or some trees that could possibly shade the roof at some point in the year, and I determine whether or not it's a viable space. And then as far as would you avoid a roof that has an attic fan installed? I wouldn't avoid the whole roof, but where that attic is, where the attic fan is located, yes. But a lot of times those are usually at the highest point on the roofs, and we aren't allowed, in most areas, you aren't allowed to use that because we have to have fire setbacks in case of, for the fire department, in case if ever is a fire, they want to cut into the roof at the highest points to let the smoke get out. So we usually aren't allowed to use that area anyways.
There are fire codes that do come into play. Sometimes, you think you have X number of square footage up there, but there's setbacks, as Sam was just saying, from one side, you got to be able to have fire access, and you have to be so many feet from the peak of the roof and all that kind of stuff. So there are many codes that come into play. That's all in that process. But it all works out in the design. The idea is to stay away from as much shade as possible, whether it's from the trees or from a higher roof or anything like that. So there's many different options to do it. And tree coverage, as we spoke about, trees are great. We want to preserve as many as we can. Trimming a tree is usually not a good option if that is ever an obstruction, because they're always going to grow back. You can trim it, but no, you're going to have to continue to trim because it's going to continue to grow back. Removal is more of an option than trimming.
Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, hold on. Do I mention if the panels are warranted from breakage? So panels, I kind of refer to solar install companies as Best Buy, and they all have the ability to sell all the different TVs you're looking at. Solar panel manufacturers, you may be dealing with LG, you may be dealing with a Canadian Solar, an REC Solar. It's just like buying a TV, a refrigerator, or a car. All the different manufacturers are going to kind of give you the same product. Things that set one away from the other is going to be the warranties and that kind of stuff. You should be looking at panels that are going to give you somewhere between 20 and 25 years of warranties. A panel should have a lifespan of somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 years. When they're guaranteeing production and breakage and all that kind of stuff, when they guarantee production for 25 years, it's not saying in year 26 it's going to stop working. There's degradation. It's always going to degrade. Once you hit a certain point, it's going to go a little quicker. And when you get to that year 30, year 32, it's just going to speed the process up a little. It's not that it's just going to stop working completely. But many companies will give you parts, labor, workmanship for at least 10 years on the workmanship, some 20 to 25 years, but parts and breakage and all that kind of stuff, you should look for something that's 20 to 25 years coverage. Things like snow and rain, obviously a panel is not going to produce as well on a gray day or when it's covered in snow, but it's going to work as almost like a car wash. It's going to wash away the pollen in the spring. It'll pull away some of those leaves that fall on a panel in the fall, and the snow will have a little bit of a heating element inside that's going to help it melt. It's not going to cook it right away, but it's going to melt quicker, and you're going to be back operating. Maybe you were at 70% at one point, you'll be back up to 100% real quick.
Yep. And if there's any natural type of disaster or something happens to fall and break a panel, it's a matter with the warranty. It's a matter of letting that company know. We'll take the serial number, let the manufacturer know, and we replace the panel.
And the one thing I will say, I usually tell people is don't try to do anything yourself. If you think there's something not working properly, don't go up there and start futzing with it, because if a crew ever comes out to take a look and they can see that you played with it, you're going to void your warranties. Same thing with snow. Don't go up there with a shovel and try to shovel it off where you could damage something and then they're going to come out and see it. Make a phone call, get it covered by service, and they'll take care of it. And that's with any panel manufacturer.
Yep.
All right, well, if no one has any other questions, I thank you for your time. I hope you were able to get a little knowledge. And, you know, we can start you on the solar coaster, as they call it.
All right, Chris and Sam, thank you so much for your time. And this is a wonderful and very informative program. Again, does anyone have any questions? Okay, we're gonna let you guys go. Thank you guys again for your time. This program was brought to you today by the West Hempstead Public Library, presented to you today with Solar Energy 101 with Chris and Sam. Thank you guys, everybody. We hope to hear from you. If you have any further questions, you can always reach us at the library and we will pass along your questions to Chris or Sam.
Thank you so much. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night. Thank you, everyone.